This is Anthony, and over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how the Green Test Prep system works and how you can help to make sure that your students use it to get the best SAT and ACT scores possible. So right when you go to the website, which is greentestprep.com, you'll see a little login icon at the top. When you go in here, you'll see a login page where you can put in your username and password. Both you and your students will have unique passwords that you can use to get right in anytime. Access is 24/7 and there's no timelines to keep, so whenever you have the time to check it out or whenever your students want to log in, they always can. Here you'll see a quick welcome page, and this will show a few how to get started guidelines, namely, decide which test you'll be prepping for. So you can figure out whether your student should take the new SAT, the ACT, or the old SAT. You can figure out which materials they should be using to supplement all of the lessons they'll learn within my program, and a few other guidelines. The main thing to notice, however, is that on the top, you'll see menu items for the SAT, ACT, and new SAT. All of your students will have access to all three, so once you figure out which test they should study for, they can dive right in, and they can do that process or complete that process on their own. So to show you how this looks, I'm going to dive right into the new SAT program. You'll also notice a score tracker link, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. So within the new SAT program, the first thing you'll notice on the left is a set of lessons and a set of tasks that they'll need to complete for that particular set. In total, each program, SAT, ACT, and new SAT, comes with 45 sets of assignments, and I've intentionally broken these sets up into little bite-sized pieces so that students can study consistently in small chunks whenever they have the time. You can navigate through these sets by either using the scroll bar at the top. You can enter in the lesson number here and just click go to lesson 14, for instance, or you can just click day 2 here and go there, or you can click back to day 1, and voila, you're back in the first day. So the navigation is really simple. The next thing to understand is how these lessons are set up. So for lesson 1, it tells you to read 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and then set a day to take your first diagnostic exam using the guidelines in 1E. Day 1 is all about setting yourself up for your first diagnostic exam. Now, all you need to do to actually open these lessons is click on the green icons. So this one teaches the material tested by the new SAT. This one teaches what the new SAT is made of, how the formatting looks. This one teaches the art and the value of patience in this process, how long-term consistent prep leads to better results. This shows how to set up a study environment. And then finally, 1E shows students how to set aside the time to plan their first diagnostic exam, because setting a baseline is so unbelievably important. Now, as students work through the program, the lessons are going to go from kind of fundamental to more specific as they go. And the really important thing to understand is that everything is set up in a very logical order that I've established over 15,000 hours teaching these tests. So nothing is left to chance, and these aren't sort of randomly ordered. It's not really a buffet line, so to speak. It's very important that students go through sequentially. So they don't have to finish one of these sets in a day or even a week, so long as they're working through a little bit of them at a time. Even if it's 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, just work through an order and they're going to start seeing huge score improvements. So for instance, on day 8, which is pretty early on in the program, you'll see a lesson like how to use commas and semicolons. Now, this is for the writing and language section, and commas and semicolons are something that very few students know how to use effectively, and comma and semicolon errors come up constantly on this exam. They are unbelievably prevalent, and so I view this as one of the most fundamental lessons that students need to know. As you go further on in the program to, for instance, 33A, you get to how to deal with tone and attitude problems, which is for the reading section. These are important, but they're a little more specific. They don't come up as frequently. So it's really important that students go through an order and build their foundation first, and then start to figure out the more specific lessons, strategies, tactics, etc. that'll really help them to fine-tune and hone their approach and the way that they take these tests as they go. And just to give you a little sneak preview of the end, if you go all the way to day 45, this is when you get into the right before test day stuff, issues such as the day before your test, what to do. So how do you prep your mind and body for the exam? How do you eat right? How do you make sure you get the right amount of sleep? 45C has to do with the actual day of the test. And 45D provides sort of an infinite extension program that students can use to keep studying consistently and keep using these key drills once they've finished all 45 sets if they have the time. So with that in mind, the only other thing I want to show you for this stage of the video is the other stuff that you'll see. So if you go down, you'll notice that on the left, below the daily lesson set and the assignments, you're also going to see a feedback link where you can just plug something in here, ask any questions you want, and this is for both you and your students. So if you have any questions for my support team or if your students do, there's a 24/7 staff on hand to help you and clear up any confusion, answer any questions, etc. Below that, you'll also notice a My Documents tab where you can find the table of contents for the entire program, along with a few free books and guides for students to help with the college planning process, to help their parents assist, etc. The table of contents will be of most interest to you. This is where you can see all of the lessons listed by their day and their category. So for instance, if you're a math teacher, you can go in and say, all right, what's the math strategy trifecta? If you want to know what I'm teaching and you want to be able to assist more effectively, you'll see that that's in 11B. So if you click back, you can go here, you can just go to day 11, check out 11B, and there's the math strategy trifecta. You can read this whole thing, and as you keep working through, you can find every single lesson that I teach, so that while you obviously have all of the material stuff down and you know how to teach all of the content tested by the SAT or the ACT, you'll also be able to assist with some of the more test-specific weirdness that comes up on these exams, because they are a little peculiar, and if you know the strategies that I use to teach them, then you're going to be able to be that much more helpful to your students if they need assistance. The good news is, because you don't actually have to complete the assignments, these are only going to take you an hour at most to read, as opposed to my students who will have to, for instance, read through these, then finish a section, work through flashcards, right? Make sure they document everything they get right and wrong, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done surrounding all of these. You just need to know what's being taught so that things fit into a more coherent framework. So that in its entirety is everything about the basics of how the program works and how students are going to work through it. Next up, what I want to show you is a few things that you can do to actually enhance the speed and the efficiency with which your students study and really be an asset to them as they work through the system. If you'd like to teach to this system most effectively, it's really important to understand how I set it up and sort of the foundational pillars of how it's established. So first, and most importantly, students are taught to understand their material weaknesses. So basically, rather than just viewing things such as math and saying, oh, SAT math is hard, what I do is I try to show students that you can break everything down into very small bite-sized bits. Then you can prioritize them, document them, review them, and study them into oblivion. So basically, once your students finish their first diagnostic test on set 2, I show them how to properly digest a diagnostic test. So rather than just saying, oh, I got a 550 in math and that's it, I'm going to show them how to break down every single problem. They're going to figure out the material elements, the strategic elements, the approach elements, document them, and put them on flashcards. And flashcards are an absolutely enormous portion of this, because I think that if students can start to kind of know thy enemy and see everything holding them back from getting great scores, they're going to end up getting great scores. Because rather than seeing this as some sort of indomitable, insane process, they're going to realize that if they can just take little bites out of it every day, and if they kind of know the face of what's holding them back, then they're going to do very well. And as the program progresses, it gets more and more specific. So here it says how to review SAT reading and the essential nature of immediate review. So this is the same thing broken down for the reading section. While you don't have, math facts and grammar rules for reading, there are ways that you can start to recognize patterns and problem types and wrongness types and error types that'll show up over and over and over again. And if students can digest their sections, and if they can figure out what wrongness looks like and exactly how to conquer it and identify it, they're going to do extremely well. Now, once they get these down and once they start the documentation process, only then do I start combining this with the strategies and tactics and approaches that are more test specific. Because, if a student is really great at the tricks for the test, but he doesn't know how to find the area of a triangle, for instance, then it's still not going to do much good. But once he starts documenting, the triangle area formula and how to find the slope of a line, then these will make a lot more sense. And what I do from here is I start integrating these into the actual strategy and approaches and tactics. So once a student has started this process of collecting every fact, every figure, every random concept and rule that they don't know, then they start learning things like SAT reading and the art of plagiarism, right? How to go in and rather than just taking every single answer or every single question at face value, looking at the questions and realizing, okay, you know what I can do? I can actually come up with my own answer first, and if I do that, I'll avoid a lot of the trickery on this test, because suddenly, rather than them suggesting ideas to me, 3/4 of which will be wrong, suddenly I'm going to know exactly what the right idea is, and if I just plagiarize the passage, right? So rather than kind of thinking of it or coming up with it or using my memory, I just go back and actually find the exact little thing that's printed that tells me what the answer is, I'm going to be very accurate in my assessment. So that really boils down two of the three pillars. And the final one has to do with timing. And this has to do with test timing, how to start using a clock and using your digital watch to really accelerate your speed. But that comes later on. And that really has to happen on a student's own time at home or during study hall. You as a teacher really just need to understand how this all works as far as what they're doing. They're documenting everything they don't know as far as material and problems are concerned. Then they're learning the key strategies, and finally they're learning how to accelerate their progress. And again, if you go into the table of contents for any of the programs, you're going to see the titles. So for instance, if you're a math teacher, you're already going to be able to help with all the, kind of how to find a slope, how to find the area of a parallelogram, etc. But you might want to know a bit more about what facts exactly are on this test in case, you haven't taught stuff like remainder in a while and want to be aware of it. You can also know all the strategies I teach. You can learn things like the question versus the prompt, the pencil down method, and victory syndrome, and the cross out method, which are methods that I use to eliminate errors and promote carefulness on these tests. So really, everything that's in here that you might need to learn aside from what you already know is very limited and can be picked up quickly. But if you do want to go in and see some of my more test-specific elements, you can do so very quickly using the table of contents. And if a student comes to you and you haven't looked yet, you can always just dive in and take a look at that moment or ask the student to show you that particular lesson, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. So really, once you have these in place and once you've read my teacher's guide on how to set up these study sessions, you have everything you need to actually help and assisting your students to do well using this program, because all of the lesson orders, all of the lessons, everything they need as far as researching, how to find all the formulas, how to find all the strategies, how to use all the grammar rules tested by these exams, it's all here within the system. It's all presented in order. So really, I just want you to get a better idea of why I'm teaching stuff in the order I'm teaching it in and how the system actually progresses as students keep working through it. The last and arguably the most important thing that you need to know about as a teacher or advisor is our score tracker system. So throughout the program, students are going to be taking about 6 full-length timed graded diagnostic tests out of real SAT or ACT booklets. And in your guide, I show you how students can do this on their own, or how your school or organization can actually set this up and proctor the exams and give them a more realistic experience. But no matter what, students are going to be going through these tests to gauge where they are, find new areas of weakness, new areas of focus, etc. So for instance, on day 23, students are going to be taking a practice test. And if you want to see how your students are doing as they work through the program, the score tracker is the first and most important tool to use. So from within the system, and you can actually log into any student's account and see their score tracker. Just get their username and password, go in, and you'll have full access to this. You go down and you pick the test that they're working on. So I'll click New SAT. And from there, I go right into the score tracker. Now here's an area where I get to enter my scores for math, reading, and writing and language. We don't put in the essay because of grading issues and because it doesn't actually affect the numerical score, so it's irrelevant for these purposes. So you'll also notice a little unfinished box, and this really has to do with timing. So students can always put in unfinished problems and realize that, they might be getting a 500 on math, but they're not finishing 20 problems per math section. That means that timing is a huge issue. Whereas if they're getting a 500 and they have 0 unfinished problems, then that means that the material and the strategy are issues. So this is a really useful tool. Now, when you go down, once you enter these scores, and I'll enter a new one right now. Let's say I got a 750 in math and I didn't finish one. I got a 340 on the reading section. Remember now that reading and writing are both going to be out of 400 to add up to sort of an 800 point super score for the verbal section, and I didn't finish 2, and on writing and language I got a 280, and I had 3 unfinished, and I submit. What's going to happen is that these scores are going to get logged below, and now I can actually choose any test. So you see all these different dates, and I was tinkering with the system earlier and entering a bunch in, but you'll be able to see linearly by date when your students took these tests, and then go in and check the results. So I can see that, okay, on the test I took today, October 27th, I got a 750, 340, 280, so on and so forth, which is very impressive. It'll also show where my improvement was. So in the 33 days between your first and last test, I got 0 points, 40 points, 80 points, so on and so forth. This will be different for every single student. So you can actually go in and see how they're doing. This is going to help you not only to figure out whether or not they're taking these tests and logging them, which is extremely important, but also where their scores are on each of these tests. So you can start to see these patterns. right here we go in, and all of a sudden the score is seriously boosted between test number 1 and test number 2. It's going to be different for every student, but this is a really useful tool for tracking how they're doing, seeing if they're going to hit their goals, and figuring out whether they're taking their tests. Also, it's important to notice that you can delete any test within the system. So if you put it in wrong, or if it came at the wrong date, you can just get rid of it. And now you'll notice there are only 7 tests. And another really important thing to see is your goal markers. So here I can actually show my goal markers for each section. And here I have a 350, 350, and here I had a 750, so the goal is reached. I have a 1450 total, and so that's still yet to get there, but it's very, very close. And this is a really helpful tool to see both what your students want to accomplish, and if you want, you can speak with your students. There's information in the guides that I've given you, the teacher's guides, on exactly how to set these goals realistically for your students' college goals so they can match their score goals to their college goals. And you can also reset these goals if you want to anytime by clicking here, so you can either set them higher if a student is really excelling, or if a student has set them way too high, he's starting with a total of 650 points and he wants to get a 1600 in 1 month, that's a pretty unrealistic goal, so you can always reset it to make it more attainable. And that really helps just to have a visual marker of where students are coming in, where they're trying to go, and how they're doing. So tracking student scores is really the best way to see how they're progressing through the program, making sure they're taking their practice tests, making sure they're moving up, and also figuring out great ways where you can focus your efforts and your assistance, if need be, to help them move through even more quickly. So if they're really skyrocketing on reading and on writing and language, but they're struggling a little bit with their math, then you know to focus more on math. So that's very helpful. And if you look at the kind of voluntary assistance sessions as described in your teacher's guide, those will give you tools to do that even more comprehensively. But another and sort of more primitive way to figure out whether your students are using the system is just to notice what lesson they're on. So for instance, let's say that I go to lesson 25, and as a student, I've worked all the way through set 25. I'm checking out 25B here. I look at the but rule, that's a critical reading rule, and now I decide to log out and I finish up. Well, the very cool thing is that if you know that your student is working on the new SAT section and you go in with their username and password, you can just log in. And when you go into the new SAT section again, you'll actually find that it's on the last lesson they were on. So if you want to figure out whether students have started the program, you can just go in, and if you log into their accounts and they're still on day 1 for the test that they chose, then that's not a good sign. That means that they stopped on day 1, and it goes through all of these. So if they stop on day 25, for instance, in the middle of March, and you log in the middle of April, you hope that they're further along. So now this isn't really going to tell you that much as far as how their scores are progressing. That's what the score tracker is for. But it will just help you if you want to know, are our students doing the work? You can see whether they're moving through, and students won't be fully aware that this is the case. So if you do this, you'll just have a very light indicator that, okay, John might not be doing the work, and I might want to sit down with him and ask if there's anything that I can do to assist. So between those two tracking methods, you have everything you need as a teacher to get the basics on how your students are progressing, what scores they're getting, and whether or not they're doing the work. Your students have a lot of work to do if they really want to improve their SAT and ACT scores, but you, as a teacher or advisor, really have seen everything you need in order to master this system and to assist your students in getting higher scores. But one thing I do want to point out is that our support team is always available. So you can either just email teachers@greentestprep.com, right here, teachers@greentestprep.com, and we'll get back to you right away. So whether you have a question about the strategies, whether you have a particular student who has issues and you want help or advice on how to keep him motivated or to push him through a particular lesson, you see scores stagnate or rise rapidly or dip, or you're not sure which practice questions to use, whatever's on your mind, never hesitate to get in touch. We are always here to help, and that goes for your students too. Your students can always email support@greentestprep.com anytime they have a question about the program itself, the hardware, the software, the lessons, the books they're using, anything whatsoever. And from within your account and within your students' accounts, never forget that you have your feedback and support links right here and here, so you can always just click these and get in touch too. You don't even have to open your web browser and go into your Gmail or your Outlook. So that's really all there is to it. I'm so excited to see how your students do on this program. It's everything they need to get the scores of their dreams. And if you want to help a little bit and you want to use the program to supplement their lessons and to assist even further, they're just going to do even better. So thanks again for watching. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and we cannot wait to see what this program does for your students' SAT and ACT scores.